from the field.
And she's guarding Clark, 94 feet. Clark? Oh, looked like Clark got smashed. No call. Here's Thomas the other way. Mabrey a three. No. And Hull the rebound. I mean, it
Touches the basketball. That's what Burton did there. All over Caitlin going inside. I mean, that's a foul. An obvious foul.
Here's Clark, three to shoot. Gonna have to hoist from the logo. An air ball. And Clark wanted a foul. But a shot clock violation. Now Bonner and Clark get into it. Oh yeah. I mean, she absolutely impacts the bottom of Caitlin Clark, who she was going back and forth with in the front row and pointing it out to the officials. And now the officials calling on security to take a look. The conversation now too, and they're going at it.
What is happening here?
It happened so fast that the crowded Mohegan Sun Arena barely had time to process it. One moment, Caitlin Clark was making her usual electric dash towards the basket, and the next, she was on the floor after a hard foul from Marina Mabrey. The entire stadium seemed to hold its breath. The Indiana Fever, locked in a heated battle with the Connecticut Sun, were desperately trying to claw their way back into the game. And then, out of nowhere, this brutal collision. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The play itself was already tense. Clark, always a fierce competitor, had been slicing through defenders all night, keeping her team alive in a game that had quickly started to slip away. The Sun, led by their relentless defense, were pushing back with everything they had. With under a minute remaining, the stakes were high, and every possession was critical. Mabrey, a physical guard not known for holding back, stepped in. Her foul wasn't subtle, nor was it graceful. It was a hard, almost desperate swipe to stop Clark from getting any closer to the hoop. The impact sent Clark crashing to the hardwood, legs tangled in arms, flailing as the crowd let out a collective gasp. From the sideline, Fever's coach could be seen gripping the edge of her clipboard, the tension clear in her face. This was not just any ordinary foul. This was Caitlin Clark, a star, one of the biggest names in women's basketball, taken down in a pivotal moment of a critical game. Mabrey, who's been in her fair share of scrappy situations on the court, stood over Clark for a split second before stepping back, perhaps realizing the gravity of what had just happened. The referees were quick to blow the whistle, and there was no question in anyone's mind that this foul was going to be scrutinized. Clark, give her credit, didn't stay down for long. She's not the type to wallow on the floor after a hard hit. With a steely determination that has become her trademark, she picked herself up, adjusted her jersey, and shot a glance towards the Fever bench. The message was clear: I'm not done yet. But even Clark's grit couldn't mask the fact that the momentum had shifted. The Sun, now with the emotional wind in their sails, used the energy in the building to fuel their final push. Mabrey, for her part, didn't look rattled. In fact, there was almost a smirk creeping onto her face. Mabrey is no stranger to physical play. She thrives in moments like this. Known for her defensive prowess and tenacity, she has built a reputation for being someone you don't want to see in a crunch-time situation if you're the opposing guard. She had been shadowing Clark all game, and perhaps frustration had begun to seep in. Clark had been hitting shots from everywhere, pulling up from deep, dancing around defenders, and parading passes in ways that make even the most seasoned commentators shake their heads in disbelief. And yet this was more than just a foul. This was an exclamation point on a game that had been brimming with tension from the opening tip. It wasn't just the physicality. It was the symbolic nature of the play. Clark, the young phenom, the player who has taken the NBA by storm with her limitless shooting range and basketball IQ, going head-to-head with Mabrey, a seasoned defender with no intention of backing down. The Fever, a team that had struggled to find consistency throughout the season, were facing one of their toughest opponents, and in the heat of the moment, the frustration boiled over. The foul seemed to suck the energy out of the Fever. They had been hanging in there, trying to keep pace with the Suns' relentless attack, but after that play, it felt as though the wind had been knocked out of them, figuratively and literally. Clark, visibly shaken but still laser-focused, headed to the free throw line, her eyes fixed on the rim as if willing the ball to go in through sheer force of will. She drained the first shot with the same smooth stroke she's known for, and the second followed shortly after, but the damage had been done. The Fever's offensive rhythm never returned. They scrambled to make something happen, but it was as if the team had collectively lost its edge. Shots that had been falling earlier in the game now clanked off the rim. The ball moved sluggishly around the perimeter, and the once vibrant cuts to the basket now seemed half-hearted. The Sun, sensing the shift, capitalized, locking down the final possessions and securing a victory that, just minutes earlier, had seemed far from guaranteed. Mabrey, in the post-game tunnel, shrugged off the incident with a wave of her hand, as if it were just another day at the office. And for her, maybe it was. She's always been a player who lives on the edge, who pushes the limits of what's acceptable on the court. But Clark, she took it personally. You could see it in her eyes as she walked off the court. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As for the Fever, this was a heartbreaking loss in more ways than one. They had fought hard, trading blows with one of the league's top teams, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. The foul, the missed opportunities, the turnovers in crunch time, it all added up. This wasn't the kind of game they could afford to lose, not when every win mattered as they fought to stay in the playoff race. But losing this way with their star player taken down in such a dramatic fashion, that was going to sting for a while. And yet, there's something about this Fever team. Even in their lowest moments, they never seem to quit. There's a spark there, a belief that no matter how many times they get knocked down, figuratively or literally, they can still get back up. It's the kind of mindset that Clark embodies perfectly. She may have been fouled hard, but if you think that's going to stop her, you don't know Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had a quiet intensity as she walked off the court. She wasn't the type to throw a tantrum or make a scene after a loss, but you could see the fire in her eyes. Her game is built on precision, instinct, and an almost supernatural ability to pull off the impossible. But it's her mindset that sets her apart. She takes every challenge, every foul, every misstep as fuel to get better. Tonight was no different. The hit she took from Marina Mabrey may have been vicious, but Clark wasn't going to let it define the night. If anything, it seemed to strengthen her resolve. That's what makes Clark so fascinating to watch. She's not just a scorer, though she can fill up a stat sheet with ease. She's not just a playmaker, though her assists are as jaw-dropping as her deep threes. Clark is a competitor, pure and simple, and her ability to bounce back after moments like these is what makes her such a dangerous player. If you foul her hard, you'd better believe she's coming back with more fire. And that's exactly what the Fever will need as they head into the tail end of the season. The Fever's heartbreak in this loss is layered. They didn't just lose the game. They lost momentum, cohesion, and maybe a little bit of their confidence in those final moments. This was a game they could have won. They had been playing with energy, making the right plays, staying within striking distance of a team that on paper had the advantage. But basketball doesn't care about paper, and it doesn't care about how well you play for 3.5 quarters. It cares about execution, grit, and poise in the closing minutes. And for all their effort, the Fever fell short when it mattered most. For Marina Mabrey and the Sun, the night ended on a high note, but it wasn't without its own share of drama. Mabrey has always been a player who thrives on intensity, but tonight she walked a fine line. The foul on Clark could easily have shifted the narrative of the game had things gone differently. It was the kind of play that could have sparked a full-blown meltdown for the Fever or galvanized them into an inspired comeback. Fortunately for the Sun, it was the former. In the closing moments of the game, as the Sun players celebrated their hard-fought win, Clark stood on the sidelines, staring intently at the court. The look in her eyes wasn't one of defeat, but rather one of determination. She knew this loss hurt, but she also knew that it was just another chapter in the long story of a season that still had plenty of basketball left to play. Marina Mabrey may have fouled her hard, but if anyone thought that was going to put a dent in Caitlin Clark's spirit, they were mistaken. Clark will be back, and the next time these two meet, you can bet she'll be ready. As for the Fever, they'll need to regroup, figure out how to close games like this, and take some hard lessons from this gut-wrenching defeat. But that's basketball, isn't it? 1 minute, you're up. The next minute, you're on the ground. And then, if you're Caitlin Clark, you get back up again, ready for the next play. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.